and a very warm welcome to Ask the Accountant. We have cool friends, and today, not only do we have a cool friend, but I would say we have a celebrity in the room
We do.
as well.
We had to get the red carpet out.
We did. So, good old Brewdog, as always, has provided us with this wonderful area. So far declined using the slide, but we'll see how that goes going forward. But no, we've got Abby with us today. Abby, I think the best thing for you to do, start off with, is just introduce yourself, and then we will start on with questions.
I won't be going down the slide. Just,
sure?
Even if we put the red carpet down it for you.
Even if you put the red carpet, it's just a recipe for disaster. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Abby. I am the founder and head of teaching at Elent Financial Education. So Elent teaches financial education in schools, workplaces, and just a bit on social media, which is, I think, where you've got your celebrity comment from.
So I think we need to start off with the fact that me and Johann have, with the podcast, with all our social media content, I mean, I'll let you talk about what we did for Berks as well and go down that route. But we've been trying our best to do education for accountants. One thing we say on our podcast a lot is the fact that we do have that issue at the moment where people aren't wanting to join the profession. We want to try and make it as, the opportunity to get into the profession as best as possible. We've been trying our hardest, made maybe a little tiny dimple of a wave maybe here and there. But it's safe to say that you've done a little bit more than that. Before we go into it though, do you want to explain what we did for Berks and stuff, just to kind of set the scene?
Yeah, so we, was it last year now?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, so Birkbeck University were doing an entrepreneurial, voluntary module, weren't they, for their finance, law and marketing students and any students from any of their courses that had entrepreneurial ideas. Concept was, you have a business idea, great. We'll help you think through that. We'll help you brainstorm it, and we'll get you to think about the marketing. We'll get you to think about the legals, get you to think about the finances. But then we'd also bring in those students from those types of courses to work with you to ask them, so they could ask them a question. So those students were getting like real life client experience, as it were, which then ended with an awards evening, which was a final kind of Dragon Den style pitch of ideas, and there was some money as a prize to help them get started with that. So that was once a month, every Saturday, we did like an online Zoom thing. We did a few sessions helping the students with the business ideas, but the main role for us was supporting the finance students to help their colleagues, as it were, to manage their clients and just go from there. So yeah, we always look at stuff like that, don't we, and try and get involved if we can.
Yeah. And I think for me, when I first heard about you, because we for anyone who don't know, we kind of met at a podcast for ICAW. And I always, you kind of gave your intro and I was like, oh, that's like what I've tried to do. Oh, that's cool. And then I realized how much more impact you've been able to do. So I think more than anything, can you give us a breakdown of what it is you've been doing with Elent, like the impact you've made, and just talk us through that one, because that to us is just the mind-blowing bit, isn't it? It's like just finding someone in the industry who wants to do that is, just magical.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with it. I wouldn't say, I think all impact is good. Like there's no small and big. I think it's just impact, which is amazing. So whenever anyone says to me, oh, I'm doing financial education, usually if you're doing a job and or running a startup essentially, and someone says they're also doing it, usually you panic. You're like, oh God, more competition. I'm the opposite. I'm like, great, because there's only one of me. I can't do everything. So let's go, come on board. And I think it's how I've just thought about Elent the entire time. The more the merrier. I think there's barely anyone in that school space. So you've got some great people in it already, but not enough. And when I started Elent, I was literally just teaching financial education in schools. So I was going into sixth forms. I was going to a lot of girls only sixth forms just right at the beginning. And because that was just kind of, I don't know why, it just ended up what I was doing. And very quickly I realized, no, we need to do this everyone all years now. And that's what I did. I went into schools, and I think I taught 20,000 students last year. We're planning to double that this year because I think we've got capacity to do so. And obviously in the future, my ambition would be to have financial education in the curriculum for this next generation because, goodness me, we need it. Every school I go to, they say, oh yeah, our kids asked us to bring, finance in or you in. And I think that's really sad. Like, why should it take the kids having to tell you what to teach them? And then also in terms of accountants, when I was, going through my ACA, I think we're all told that kind of metric that if you're an ACA accountant, you're like most likely to get to that CFO position. And I was in industry for a long time and I thought, okay, yeah, I could get to CFO. But I was like, oh, actually not excited by that. But then when I realized you could be an ACA accountant and then run a startup, that was more exciting. I can actually change things. I can do like good. That I was passionate about, loved. And I realized my ACA not only supported it by being able to be the CFO of your startup as well as the CEO or equivalent, I could be thinking about it from strategy, like case study. I could be coming at it from, the CFO position and also running a business, which was just epic. That was like my kind of journey into it. But in terms of teaching, with the schools, we did, like I said, about 20,000 last year, hoping to double that this year and keep going. And then with my Instagram, I started very slowly but consistently just banging the financial education drum. And we've seen some really nice growth. I think we're on like 92,000 in the community now, which is just heaven. Because there's so many people out there just that deserve financial education. And it's not just about the next generation, it's about everyone else that missed it.
Yeah. So going back to kind of the start then for you, what part of it was, you mentioned there about you got really passionate about doing a startup and being there. But before all that, at some point you would have decided ACA seems like a career choice for me. And talk, please, if you can, talk us through like what made you decide to become an accountant in the first place. But pre that, like going through school and stuff, what did you want to be? Was it a teacher or was it accountant? Was it both or was it a dentist? Like how have you got to the position you are now?
So no, I definitely did not. I don't think any little girl dreams of being an accountant. If we're really honest, sure. Maybe the times have changed, but I think little girls dream of like maybe being like running a company or like CEO of the world type vibe, but maybe not that. But for me, I had so many different things I wanted to do. At one point, I wanted to be a wedding dress designer. Where that went, I don't know. There was many different things. I wanted to do a whole host of things in my life. But when I got to kind of that A-level choice decision, I just happened to be in a school where we just weren't able to do, I wasn't able to do the subjects in terms of those creative subjects I wanted to do. So I ended up doing maths, economics, and politics. Not sure I'd recommend that to people, but I did. And I was dyslexic, and so my school were like, right, well, if you're dyslexic, you must be good at numbers, which reasonably, I wouldn't say I was any better than anyone else. I was just okay. They're like, well, if you're good at numbers, you must be an accountant. And I think they said it at a parents' evening once, and my parents, who are a builder and a hairdresser, who are incredible, but both left school very young, were like, great. We've now got an accountant in the family. That's going to halve our expenses. This is going to be brilliant. So I was then kind of thrust into thinking that accountancy was for me. And I did accountancy at university and it was all right. It was fine. And when I left, you kind of, when you do accountancy at uni, the one thing I did love about it is you kind of have this like, you know where you're going. There is a path out of uni, which for many degrees is really tricky. You know, if you choose like geography or psychology, sometimes it can be really difficult to know what is the exact next step. Whereas with accountancy, it's quite clear. You've got one of a few options, but you take that next step along ACA, CIMA, ACCA, whatever. And so for me, that's what I did. And I went and I found a job at a practice, a very, very small one. And it was lovely, which is why I study ACA. Because I got to the practice and started, and the guy that ran it was ACA qualified. So he was like, oh, well, you should do ACA. It's absolutely doable. You can do it. And I was there for a year and I started it and I did. And I was like, yeah, I am. Like, I'm more than capable of doing this. Moved into industry. So after practice, I moved into glossy magazine world. So I actually worked for Condé Nast, which owns like Vogue, GQ. And it was a complete opposite environment. ACA, no one did the ACA in industry because it's just not really, I've actually spoken to them about this, but it's just not very adaptable for industry because many of them do CIMA or ACCA because it's much more flexible. But I stuck with it because I really wanted to finish. I suppose it says a lot about me with my startup. If I start something, I'm going to finish it. I can't quit anything, which is often my downfall. So yeah, I was like, I'm going to finish this. I I did the vast majority at Condé Nast. And then I moved just at the end to a new company called Hearst. It is, to you guys, it's an identical company. It basically, you have Vogue, they owned Harper's Bazaar. If you're looking at it, so, similar thing. So I moved to Hearst and qualified there. It was brilliant and I loved it. But as soon as I qualified, I realized I'd like hit that goal. What was next? And what was driving me before was no longer driving me. And I was like, well, I'm qualified now. So I wanted those like instant gratifications quicker, because throughout the ACA, you get those quick gratifications by like passing an exam. But in work, you don't often get those quick gratifications because it might take a year for you to get promoted because of regulations and rules. And that wasn't going to work for me in my brain. I needed fast. So my company were incredible. Like I actually kind of told them very early on. As soon as I thought of the idea, I was telling my manager about it. And they were very accommodating, but it meant I couldn't do both. So I handed in my notice there and I had like a lovely send off. And they, I loved them all and they were brilliant at like helping me transition out. And then I went full-time Elent, Jan 22, and haven't really looked back.
So we'll definitely come back to Elent because that's the main reason you're here, if we're completely honest. But one thing you've said there that I don't hear a lot of at the moment, and I think this is, I'm sorry for this, Johann, this is going into a bit of a rabbit hole that
governing bodies.
Yeah. And I wonder if you may think it's because you went the university route. But one thing I know about you and what you've told me and what we've kind of spoke about before is that you have a really good relationship with ICAW, and that's very rare.
Yeah.
For me, I've almost had to fight my way into committees and local committees and all that sort of stuff. And I've been fighting my way in and not really knowing what ICAW were really there for, if I'm completely honest. It's a conversation we've been having behind the scenes and everything else. But you seem to be invested. You seem to understand it. And I assume a lot of that is because of Elent and trying to kind of get the synergies there. But it seems like even before that, you were quite involved. Is that fair to say with ICAW, or were you not? Could it be the university route that gives you more of a push with it, maybe? What's your thoughts of it before Elent?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think because my very first boss was so proud of the ICAW.
Brilliant.
I think I just inherently took on that belief system. Like I had no real reason to. And don't get me wrong, like I have door knocked my way into the ICAW. Like I didn't just turn up, ask to speak to someone and they let me speak to them. I have spoken to everyone. I am in the Charters Council, which is their like head area, all the time. Yeah. Yeah. Whether they like it or not, I will find them when they're getting their coffee. I'm there and I'm like, oh, hi, Will, let's have a chat. Whether I just bombard them. I call it door knocking, but I just like keep knocking on bigger doors until someone will like reply. And that is a little bit of my relationship with the ICAW. And I just I think possibly, like I said, I think it's probably that relationship that my manager had with the ACA, because when I then went into industry, my manager happened to be ACA, but she was no longer studying. She'd qualified and she'd come that Big Four route, which is what pretty much everyone that does ACA does. Yeah. And so she was also proud of it. And, you heard those stats about if you're ACA qualified, you're, associate chartered, like that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, well, I should just be equally as proud. And also in my family, like, my parents had never gone to uni, let alone finished their A-levels. Might be doing my dad a disjustice there, but definitely my mum. And, I was so proud that I was able to complete that and have letters after my name. In my family, that just is not a thing. And so, I have my certificate it's in my parents' house because it's far more their achievement, clearly, than it was mine. I think it's just something that I'm proud of. So it's not necessarily that I have this like wonderful relationship with ICAW from the beginning. I was just, I suppose, proud of myself, and that kind of led to being proud of them. And I am now having more and more conversations with them because I'm saying to them, look, I am a good advocate for you. Exactly. I work really hard to remind people that, yes, maybe ACA is not the most flexible and there is room to improve, but it's really good. Like, you've got all these opportunities, it's a very like well-regarded qualification. So yeah, I would say it's taken time. Like, I've been speaking to Will Holt now a lot, and he is brilliant, and he's looking to actually make some changes. And I think only reason I've managed to get to him is because I've had all these other conversations along the way with people and been like, do you know what, you could do this and this and this. And they'll say to me, well, we could, but it's not really how it's done here. And I was like, that means nothing. Because when I started going to the Chartered Accountants Hall, when I found out that it's completely free to go in, which
I didn't know either, and I've been a member.
It's like a free WeWork.
Yeah.
Like you can go into the business suite. Yeah, and like the coffee is significantly cheaper than anything you're going to find in London. Like significantly. The staff are all wonderful and you can sit there. But the first time I went in, I was the only woman, and I'm not exaggerating that. I was the only woman, and it was just a sea of men in suits and like, you know, older men, if we're being really honest, in suits. And I thought, oh, okay, fine. But just put my smile on, make friends with people. And actually, I think my first week I made friends with a guy called Ray, who will love that I'm mentioning him. But he is like in his 70s. He's retired. He doesn't have to work anymore, but he retired, I think, and his wife was like, no, you can't just stay home every day. Like, go and find somewhere to be.
Yeah.
And so he plays a bit of golf, goes into the ICAW a little bit, do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And he's lovely. And I've got really good, like, become really good friends with a 70-year-old accountant just through being at the ICAW. And he is really wonderful. Like, he actually came up to me yesterday when I was at the Chartered Accountants Hall and said, I've seen what you're doing on LinkedIn. Like, I'm so proud. Like, it's just amazing. Because I met him January 22. So right before it was even a thing. And that was lovely. That sense of community.
Yeah.
It was really nice. And I have seen a change. Like, I do now go out of my way to like wear pink when I go in. No other reason. I don't even have that many pink clothes. But like, just because I'm going in, I'm like, right, you guys are going to remember that the other gender exists and that you can wear something other than black. It's fine. So I just kind of, and I'm really good friends now with like the people at the front desk, and that's like, we have a funny joke where if I invite someone in, I always say like to them, oh, just ask for Abby. And apparently they do this because 4 different people have told me this now. They respond like, oh, well, the girl with the big hair. And they're like, yeah. So it's, yeah, I just like that side of things. And I think, yeah, they've got a lot to do, and I'm very happy to help them do it. To be more flexible, to be more there for the next generation. Good. But it's nothing I haven't already said to them, because I even said to them, like, your Instagram page is full of older people. Yep. No young person is going to go, oh yeah, that looks like me. Like, that represents me. It's just not going to happen.
No. It's brilliant. And please keep at it, because I think we need more people like yourself just banging that drum and making it relevant again, don't we? So Elent itself, how has it gone since 2022, didn't you say that it started? So talk us through that journey, and why do you think it's been so successful? Because from what we can see outside looking in, shall we say, it seems like you've kind of really found your stride with it, which is great to see. Yeah.
So technically we founded October 21, but I went full-time Jan 22. So I like to either one. I'll celebrate the 2 years, like over 3 months. It's fine. I think it's a bit cheesy, but I'm so passionate. I just love it so much. So when I was deciding what I wanted to do next with Elent, actually just with my career, when I was at Harper's at the end of like Hearst, I was thinking, what is it that I care about?
Yeah.
And my partner like laughed, because I asked him, I was like, what is it that I care about? And he was like, you're joking, right? And I was like, no. And he was like, what do you bring up at every dinner table? And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, any chance you get the opportunity to tell something to somebody, like, what do you talk about? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, inequality and gender pay gap, or financial inequality and the gender pay gap. They're your thing. I was like, that's not a thing. Everyone cares about that. He was like, no, they don't. They really don't. Like, we all have something we care about, and that's yours. And he was like, how can you make that a business? And I honestly did go looking for what Elent is, because if it existed, I would have been knocking on their door well louder than I've ever knocked on any door before, to be like, I need to work for you because I care. But I couldn't find it. There was lots of different businesses tackling little bits of it, but there wasn't one doing the thing I needed. So then I thought, okay, well, I could just give it a go. Bit of naivety, bit of confidence from being ACA qualified. And I thought, more than capable. Yeah, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But yeah, I just thought, right, let's just go for it. And I just started. And, you start with all sorts of weird names when you start your business, don't you? I had some tragic names at the beginning. And then we landed on Elent, which actually stands for elegant and intelligent. It's like a culmination of the two words, because I wanted it to be a kind of brand that you didn't, it didn't have to explain itself. And I got told so many times at the beginning, oh, you'll need to change the brand name because it doesn't make sense. And now people say to me like, oh, you're from Elent. And I'm like, you'll learn the name, don't worry. And it's not hard. It's not like, and also it's really good. It was a good, easy website to find as well. Because obviously it means nothing to anybody except me. And yeah, I suppose I just kind of, my passion, my like relentlessness, the fact I knew that because I cared so much, I was willing to get up early and stay up late and work on the weekends because I loved it, not because, you know, it was a startup or it was a job. It was more than that to me. In that startup world, often the first question you'll get asked, which I find so bizarre, is like, what's your exit plan? And when I started, I was like, so insulted by it. I was like, what on earth do you mean? This is my child. I'm never, ever going to exit from this. As you get along, you get why people talk about exit. But and I just thought, no, you can't. Like, and I think that is a good place to be. If you start your business thinking, I could never leave this, it's probably going to stand you in good stead because whether you do have to at some point in the future, at least the innocent you that started it at your kitchen table, you know, that sort of vibe, was so passionate and loved it so much that you couldn't ever think being without it, because it does become like a husband or a wife or a whatever, like a partner, and just like one that constantly needs more from you and never tends to give back much. So yeah, I would say probably just the passion and the relentlessness.
I love it. And I think what we've seen a lot in the industry at the moment is there are people like yourselves, people like Rachel Harris, there are certain people now going, exactly that conversation you just had there. I was looking for X. It wasn't there. So I built it myself. And I feel, is it the fact that we've got such an opportunity now? Like there's more opportunity and entrepreneurialism around, whatever the reason is, but there seems to be a movement for it now. And that's got to be good. And you know, I know you're friends with Rachel as well. Yep. And there's others in that group as well. And it's got to be good that you all, you know, you weren't inspired by one another, but you all now got that common goal and you're all pushing towards it. That's got to be a good, to have that community, right? Yeah.
Rachel was definitely bringing that feminism or like feminist vibe to finance because it's all pink. I love it. I think it's when we connected, I was like, I just love the pink. As much as I don't do it every day, and it's not really my trademark, but I think it's just lovely to see, because if I'd seen that when I was starting ACA, I would have thought, oh, okay, so I can wear pink. I have a funny like snippet that I have told a few people now, which is when I started doing my ICAW exams, I would feel so nervous. I failed more than a few. And I realized that after about 3 of the exams, I just wasn't turning up as myself. I like would turn up and there's just reams of, you know, disproportionately males, and like everyone's wearing really dark colors. Everyone's really serious. And I think on my 4th exam or something really early on, I was like, do you know what? I think I woke up one morning for this exam, and I often used to stay at my parents' and sit it in Croydon. And I saw an old pink Juicy Couture tracksuit that I've had for a while. I'm going to just say a while. And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to wear that, and I'm just going to wear it to the exam. And I come down the stairs and my mum was like, you can't wear that out. And I was like, I can and I will. And I wore it to the exam. And even the guy signing me in was like, the ACA exam. And I was like, yes, it's fine. Don't worry. I'm in the right place. I just look wrong. And I passed that exam because I walked in and I honestly had like 3 or 4 giggles throughout the exam just about the fact of the way I looked, because I'd like be writing this exam. Just right when I started, we were still handwriting them, turned quickly into the laptop, kind of computer based. But I was writing and I looked to my right and my left. I thought, you guys, I look so silly. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, but I loved it. And I actually felt really comfortable. Yeah. Whereas I looked to my right and left and they'd be in suits. And I was like, you can't be comfortable in that, surely. And yeah, that just stuck. I just wore that for every exam because I was like, oh, well, I passed. So therefore it's the Juicy Couture tracksuit. That's what's done it. And yeah, Rachel was like that. We're just kind of rebelling against what the norms are meant to be and being our own version, because I think there's so much more room to grow in that. Like, you know, we're just representing some like femininity, but there's a plethora of anything you could represent as an accountant. You know, there's so much more you can do. And I think people shouldn't be afraid to like show that side of them. They should be an accountant plus, not an accountant. It should be, I'm an accountant that does, or I'm an accountant that is, rather than I'm an accountant. Because I don't know about you guys, but before Ellen, and I used to tell people I was an accountant, you could see the happiness drain from their eyes. People are like, oh, so what do you do? And I'd be like, well, I'm an accountant, and then I'd be rushing to be like, but I do work like somewhere quite cool. But immediately they just like switch off and then move on, and you're like, oh, okay. Whereas now, obviously, what I do, I can be like passionate for the work, and I even forget to tell people I'm an accountant now. Obviously, I do everything else. I'm like, oh yeah, I am also an accountant.
It still glaze over at that point.
Yeah, yeah, and at that point they're like, oh, okay, that's not as exciting. But yeah, I think there's so much more paving of the way to go.
I love it. And I feel like with the fact that you're saying there about wearing pink or whatever you're trying to do to kind of open up the industry, when we're in such a skill shortage at the moment, we're crying out for anyone else to come in.
Yeah.
And it should never have. And we've made the rod for our own back, right? We've made ourselves into this really narrow, typical accountant mold.
Yeah.
Where exactly as you're saying, we need to open that up. And is that what Elent is trying to do as well? As not just in the education of younger people, but is it just like, look, this is what it's about? And because I feel like the only way we're going to do that is not just by showing representation, but also explaining to people that what accountancy is. Like, it's not just numbers. It is actually helping small businesses or whatever route you want to go down. Is that what you are? Is that like the values of Elent itself?
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I go to schools, I do make the joke where I'm like, I don't need any of you to be accountants. I just need you to understand the finance, because I think people panic when I say I'm an accountant and I'm about to teach them something. They think that I'm just trying to force them into being an accountant. And I'm like, no, you don't have to be. But I also do love the fact that more often than not, every school, someone will say to me, so what was your career? How did you get here? Like, what A-levels did you take? What degree did you get? What's the ACA? And I love that I'm able to explain that and also be in front of 20,000 kids, because it's those kids that need to hear about different careers. You know, accountant is one of those like stereotypical careers, and there are others out there. But like you said, we're seeing a drop because actually it's not cool. It really isn't. Like, and we can dart about that however we like, but it's not. And I think we need to be like I said to the ICAW, like, we need to bring them in, because what is cool is the building. Like, the ICAW building is really cool. And like, why aren't we bringing them in? And it's like this like closed door where we're like, no, we don't bring them into our world. Why not?
The whole industry, we've been saying it for a while, haven't we, needs a complete and utter rebrand. I'm not a governing body fan. My firm's governed for AML through HMRC, and we leave it at that. I think it's a complete waste of money at times. But we don't need it for what we do. We're just looking after small businesses, blah, blah, blah. But my biggest criticism of governing bodies is the lack of any thought leadership they've had for the last 20 years. Because they've just thought, well, there's old men in suits. There'll always be old men in suits. That's okay. That's what the accounting industry is. Like, in the last 7 years, just going to conferences, we're in jeans and T-shirts. You know, we're seeing people in pink. We're seeing women turn up to like digital accountancy show in their summer dresses because it's hot. Like, people would have never have done that 5 years ago. So I think the brand is there, but the governing bodies aren't promoting that image yet, because they still haven't got the thought leadership, because that's not how it's done here. And that's got to change. Otherwise, no one's going to go and get the governing body's qualifications. Like, there were statistics out a few weeks ago where the number of students going in for different governing bodies registered as students was plummeting for every single governing body. I think the only one that was kind of okay was the ACCA.
Really?
Like, everyone else's numbers were just plummeting by double percentage figures. So if we've got the image right at the accounting conferences, like, people are in their hoodies, people are chatting, there's now a culture and community of supporting each other, which there never used to be. You used to walk down the street, didn't you, and everyone was a threat. That's the accountant from across the road. He nicked so-and-so client the day. Like, that was it. That was a threat to the business. Whereas we're now all networking, and we're going to events, and we're doing podcasts and stuff like that. How much longer until the governing bodies actually wake up and do something about this? Not just a token move, but actually make strives and change leadership ideas. And how much longer have we got before it's too late?
Yeah, that's a big question. And also not to get too deep, but like it's the same with education.
Oh.
What are we all waiting for?
I think I've said it on the podcast a few times. Like, why are we focused on trigonometry at GCSE level, which no one apart from people that go into uni and architecture and stuff will ever use again in their lives? Yet we're not teaching how to read a payslip. What is a mortgage? Am I better renting or having a mortgage? What should my objectives be as I grow up in my finances? Like, I used to work for a company called PGL, Outdoor Activity Centre company. I was their finance manager. It was a seasonal company, so you got 18 to 25-year-olds basically that would get their first job as an instructor or group leader or something. First wave of staff would start in February. End of February, first pay slips come out. I would have a queue at my door of people asking me to explain what their pay slip is. What's that minus there? Well, that's the tax man. He takes money off you to pay for the state. And these guys were coming in at 18 to 25, never knowing what any of this is. But we could teach that at schools, but instead we're going to teach Shakespeare. We're going to teach trigonometry.
Yeah, there is. And also, I'm going to caveat all of this by saying teachers are honestly the closest thing to like the selfless job I can find.
Oh, it's not the teacher's fault. No, it's the curriculum set out by the government.
They are incredible. It's the curriculum that, honestly, so I actually did some research into like, if you look back, obviously 200 years ago, the education routine hasn't changed much since then. And that education routine was set because we were going through this like manufacturing era where we were having to develop people fast that could work in factories. So that's the reason we have the like being at school between certain hours, because that's when you used to be in the factory, you know, learning about simple math, simple science, simple English, because you needed that to be able to run, you know, machines in the factory. It no longer works. Our next generation is telling us it no longer works. They are rebelling against it. You know, they're getting more and more frustrated. And the solution for some people has been, well, we'll just, you know, make uni more expensive for a start. And then, okay, we'll try and do some maths until 18. That's not what will be. That I chose maths. No one needs, if you don't want to be doing it, do not do maths A-level, because it will take so much resilience to keep going, because that is hard. And I think, yeah, we should be asking why more, because then the young people are asking why. You know, when I teach, I have the same. So I teach about pay slips pretty much throughout every year at some level. Obviously, when you're age 6, that's slightly hard to get that one out. But, you know, and they say to me, why do we pay tax? Why do I have to put into a pension? Why? And I, as an accountant, can explain that. But, you know, they shouldn't be having to ask all the time. We should have been like proactive. And it's the same, like you said, with accountants. Like, we should be proactively going out and showing the good things we're doing in the world. Like what accountants look like in the wild. Yep. You know, I do this thing on my social media called Finance Fridays with Foster, where I answer people's finance questions. And I will, more often than not, every Friday, get a question about my career, or ACA versus ACCA, or any of them, or something to do with accounting, or for career in finance. And I just feel like it's sad, because there's obviously nowhere else for them to go.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where else are they going to go and get these answers? So I answer them, because technically it's not to do with personal finance, which is what my page is. But they have to have somewhere to ask these questions, and that's why we're here. And I think these governing bodies could be doing more. Like, I know ACCA have even done some things with like companies that are teaching in schools, and it's very clever of them. And I wink wink to ACA have been like, guys, like, come on, like, we can do this as well. Like, it's more than capable. You know, like you said, like that older generation, brilliant. We're all here for Ray. Like Ray at the beginning, I was talking about, he's brilliant, and
we've all got so much to learn from Ray.
Exactly, but we also have a lot to learn from the next generation that are going to tell you what they want, not the other way around. Because maybe that next generation, maybe the 15, well, I don't know, maybe I'm going a bit far here, but maybe the 15 exams across 2-3 years that almost kill you off doesn't work anymore. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. Like, we're more than happy nowadays to talk about neurodiversity. I'm dyslexic, and whilst the ACA was accommodating because I got an extra 25% extra time, there are so many more people with like ADHD, like more people coming forward, ADHD, ADD, lots of different neurodiversities that need more support. And if you are not going to support them, they know their rights. They're out the door. They'll go and find someone that will. And I think that's what we should be focusing on as well, from like an educational and post-qualification conversation.
It's a big conversation in America at the moment, is the 150-hour rule, which they have to be a public chartered accountant over there.
Yeah.
Like, they're saying it's too steep, like it's mission impossible, it's putting people off. So many other careers are now so much easier to access. And, you know, it is a huge, like, I'm dyslexic. I got through school, did my GCSEs. I did all right. I got my GCSEs, I got 2 Ds in English and everything else was a C. So I did okay. It was a lot of bloody hard work. And just as I was getting my GCSE results, and they kind of went, "Oh, we think you're dyslexic, by the way." It's like, cool, thanks for that.
I had the exact same situation. So it got to GCSE, and they were like, "We think you might be," or I think it was like maybe I've even got to A level. And my economics teacher was like, "Have you ever been tested?" And I was like, "I don't even know how to spell it, let alone what it is."
Yeah, exactly.
Why have they made the word dyslexia so hard to spell for dyslexic people? It doesn't make sense. But I then did like 6 weeks at college. If my parents ever ask, it was 12 weeks. But I did 6 weeks at college and I packed it in because it just wasn't for me. It was teachers teaching me business studies who have never run a business in their life, and they were teaching me out of a textbook that they'd learned from themselves. Yeah, I've now got my degree in management and leadership. I've done it for on-the-job training, like MVQ style, because that works for me. But there's so many amazing employees that I've got alone in my firm who aren't qualified, but could actually outpace in real life scenarios any qualified person going, because they've just learnt from life, and they know the textbook's black and white. Life's grey. There's always weird spaces in life where that's not in the textbook, and the textbook person goes, "Ugh." But governing bodies need to be more accommodating of that from a neurodiversity point of view. I mean, a lot of people, they used to be called disabilities, didn't they, or learning difficulties.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, I was slow at reading, like giving glasses. I mean, they weren't wrong. My eyesight was appalling, but it was always slow. But I know how good I am at everything else. And like, is it Simon Sinek always says, people that have got ADHD, it's a superpower because you're going to be a far superior business owner than anyone else is. So, yeah, I do think there's a lot of work to be done on neurodiversity and how we can help lift those 15 stressful exams. Like, we're the most aware generation of mental health that there's ever been. And every generation below us is now, because of COVID and stuff like that. But nothing's changed in the last 2 or 3 years of how we examine an accountant or a payroll or a bookkeeper, even though the whole world's suddenly aware of this mental health issue and the stress that exams bring. And some people don't do well with coursework, some people don't do well with exams. Well, how much longer until we actually see some change?
Yeah, the next generation, like, it's a common statistic now, I'm sure you guys have all heard, like, use TikTok as their search engine.
Yeah.
They don't use Google, which is just mind-blowing for all of us, but for them, they do. And so why aren't we therefore, because obviously my big thing with my social media is using video content. Everything, basically 90% of my content is video content. It's just me talking, done. And people are comfortable with that nowadays. That's how they want to learn. They're telling us that by using TikTok instead of Google. So why aren't we adapting with them? Like, you know, if and when I create the next like thing I want to do, it will be video led, because that's how people want to learn. You don't create something and force other people to learn like that. You find out what they want and develop it for them. You help them, and that's just not happening. And it's so frustrating.
I've got an author I really enjoy listening to his books, John Lamberton, and he's just done a new book. It got released in August, but he's only just recorded the audio version, so I don't get to hear it until January. But as a dyslexic person, the only time I ever remember enjoying reading a book was when you were in class and they went around the classroom, and I enjoyed it until they got to me. Then it was a disaster. But they go around the classroom and you would read along as someone's read it out loud.
Yeah.
That was the only time I could read quickly and efficiently and enjoy it. So when audiobooks came out with Audible, all of a sudden, all these business books that I would have never read, I'm sat there
Available.
listening to,
Yeah.
cycling, listening to them. And now I'm doing so much with YouTube and learning through YouTube. Like, yeah, again, that's all got to come in as alternative learning resources. I get it's a big job for governing bodies to do it.
Oh, of
it's
course it
huge.
is. Yeah. But
And
we
then
can
how
all
do you
help.
assess that? But that's the problem. That's the
Yeah.
thing, though. People like yourself are out there going, I'm already creating this content. I can teach you how to create it. I can help you create it.
Yeah.
You can reuse some of the content.
Yeah, I'll
you've
do
already
it
got.
for you.
Yeah.
I'll hold your hand.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
But you still need to say, yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think it's something to be said about also I'm not doing it for exposure. I'm doing it because it needs to be done. Like, because often they'll be like, oh, that's nice. And then they'll like repost something. And I'm like, okay, but you also have to reward me. Like you say that obviously being an accountant levels up your salary, you can expect more from your life. Don't then underpay your like the people that are helping you and we're just not willing to give as much. Do you know what I mean? And I think, like I said, the next generation, they really are asking why. That's what I would say if I had to sum up like a word about them, it's why. When I was at school, I was constantly in trouble because I always asked why, and it was just not okay. You did not ask why. You followed blindly because that was the way it was.
If you did ask why, it was assumed it's because you didn't understand.
Yeah.
And like the rest of the class was following blindly.
Yeah.
Well, you're asking why because you're dim.
Yeah.
Like,
Or you're Aggie.
it's not
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you're
yeah, exactly.
curious
Constantly.
or you're trying to understand the bigger picture or anything. It's just, well, you obviously don't understand what I've just told you. Read it
Yeah.
again out of the textbook.
Yeah. Or like I said, repeating, but like, or you're being an aggravator.
Yes.
Like, because I've told you, and also I think that's just like there was back then. It was like this just assumed respect. Like you absolutely respected them because they knew more. But actually, when you ask why, like why do we have to do it like this? Why can't we do it like this? Or why is this the way it's always been? Their next generation, they don't even think that's how they like. It's not me because obviously in my school, maybe I was one of a few people that thought like that. It's all of them now. If I misgender someone, I know about it, and quite rightly, crack on, you tell me off. Like, if I'm getting things wrong, more than happy for you to tell me off. And that isn't just about that, it's about everything. Like, if you aren't comfortable with what I'm telling you, I should be able to explain myself to you. Like, that should be the bottom line. And I think something that might be hindering the next, like the boomer generation that are probably running things right now, is that they have grown up in a generation where you didn't ask why.
Yes.
The complete opposite. And so they don't understand why it's okay for them to ask why. It's just, I think then there needs to be some flex, and it's just very rigid. And then the problem is we're going to see something snap because we're just going to be like, fine, well, we'll go and do our own thing. And then you just wreak havoc because actually there's, like you said, I know we're repeating stuff, but there's a lot to learn from Ray. Whoever Ray, we're using him as an example. There's a lot to learn from him, but he also has a lot to learn from next generation, and so do I. Even in my last 10 years of my career, things have changed massively. I was in a job in my first year where it was okay for people to put cups on my desk because I was the most junior in the room, so I made the tea. That wouldn't happen in a million years now. I would never be asked to write notes despite the fact I was probably more senior than certain other people in the room, but just because I was a female, that doesn't happen now. There's brilliant things that have happened in the last 10 years. So I've got learnings and I consider myself young. Although some people in my team make me feel quite old now. But I consider myself to be young. And if I've got things to learn, what have they got? So I understand. It is tough. We're not going to fix it here, are we? But these conversations are the things that, shake the needle a little bit along or kick the can a little bit further down the road until someone goes, oh, we've got a lot of cans here. We should probably organise this. That kind of thing.
Yeah. So you've mentioned why, and you keep mentioning why. We like why. So why did we call you a celebrity at the beginning of this podcast?
Was very kind of you. Because my Instagram, so I started Instagram for Elent, my business. Well, back when I started it, probably like October 21, I probably created the account and then fully went for it Jan 22. In July, I'd been plodding along for a little while, just trying desperately to build up that community, that consistency, who I was, what we were representing. And then in July, a couple of things kind of came together and I really honed into like what it was people liked and that I wanted to do and that I was good at. And in July, we went from like 3,500 to 50. And we went in a weekend, we went up by like 30,000. It was honestly the most stressful weekend of my life. I was at a friend's 30th and her and her friends had no kind of affiliation to social media. They all had incredible jobs, but all kind of corporate jobs. And so I was sat in the corner like, oh my God, this is blowing up. And they were like, oh, that's nice. Anyway, and I was just like there and I was like, oh my God, does no one else care? Like I had like family and friends being like, what the hell's happening to your Instagram? And I was like, I don't know. And so July saw a growth to like 50 and then August we saw it to like 80. And even in the last, because we thought it would start to like calm down, but even in the last like few weeks, we're now at like 92 and it is mind blowing. It's obviously led to, I've been on This Morning and I've been on Sky News and I have like a Sunday slot on LBC, talking to like Andrew Castle about financial kind of topics of the week. And it's been amazing. Like I had these 5-year goals of presenting on TV. Like I was a pipe dream. Like maybe that's probably what little me like wanted to be. Like, you know, you see This Morning and like everyone looks so glam and I wanted to do that. And there I was just on the telly and I was like, this is bonkers. And so I suppose that's where you're leading to in the celebrity thing. But I'll actually tell you, yesterday was the first time ever someone stopped me on the street that I didn't know. And I was like, that's it, Mum, I've made it. I am, that's it, I can go home. But I was in Shoreditch and I was just walking along the street and a girl was sat with her partner having dinner and she like put her hand out in front of me and was like, excuse me. And I was like, hello. She was like, I know you, I follow you. And I was like, oh my God, this is the weirdest experience of my life. Because people say it to you like at a networking event or something where they're like, oh yeah, because we're in the same circle. But a complete randomer, first time was yesterday. And I was like, okay, this is bonkers. Yeah. Like the complete strangers are very comfortable feeling like they know me well enough, which I love. Yeah. I don't hate that at all. I think it's brilliant. But quite fairly, her partner was like, there's that. Like, and she was like, no, she does the finance. And as we're walking away, I could hear him being like, go on then, show me what she does. And I was like, God, I hope it looks good. But so my social media has just kind of blown. And we are, like I said, at 92 currently. But obviously I have big dreams for it to be obviously a safe space for people for their personal finance education. Mm-hmm. You know, we do Finance Fridays with Foster. You know, every Friday I am asking them what they want me to answer and I reply. You know, I used to do this a year ago and I get like 2 questions, you know, one probably from my dad, like, you know, the other one was from someone in the community that I would pour my heart and soul into just because they were there. I'd probably, you know, make up a few just because I was like, at this point, like, please, I need more than 2 stories here. Yeah. And then we flipped. And it was the same also with the Sunday quiz. So I do this quiz on a Sunday, like 6 multiple choice questions, just a little bit of finance knowledge. And, you know, even in like June time, I'd get maybe 100 people doing it, maybe max. That would be an epic week if I did. Yeah. That weekend that we flipped over, the following week, that Sunday quiz had like 1,000 people do it. And the Finance Friday, I had like 200 questions and I was like, oh my, how am I going to answer that? And now, like, I think our biggest one with the Sunday quiz was a couple of weeks ago and we had like 5,000 people do the Sunday quiz, which is epic. And many, many, many Finance Fridays for Foster questions, which I now have to be super selective about because often people, when it comes to finance, there's a big trust out there with accountants and they'll just write their salaries, they'll write their, honestly, they're close to like writing their national insurance numbers on there and I'm like, oh my goodness, please stop. And they ask quite personal questions, so I have to like rein it back and be like, look, it's general questions, or like if it's a specific one but you haven't given me any details about your life, I can do that. But that is Instagram right now, which has gone crazy.
Amazing. And it's amazing that it's Instagram that kind of, because we've seen people blow up on LinkedIn, we've seen people blow up on TikTok now, and it's good. Yeah, but seeing Instagram as well is great.
Yeah.
So you've already mentioned consistency, which is definitely going to be one of the key. But if you could kind of give yourself any learnings back from the beginning, what else do you reckon's done well for you that's kind of given you that platform and that community now? What special sauce do you reckon you've brought to the table?
Couple of things. So obviously I kind of outsourced the production side. So I go to a place called Dream Factory and I record the content somewhere else. So for me, it actually was a kind of efficiency thing and also good production because we were talking before, like cameras, it's quite expensive. You don't really know what you're getting, don't know what you're doing. Whereas you go there and it's all set up for you. So I could go record 2 hours of content and it can be weeks of content.
Yeah.
So that was a good efficiency kind of rule. Brought in good team members, like fabulous, and helped me out. And then in terms of something I would have said to myself at the beginning, I think it would be review fast enough, like review often and quickly. So when you have done like 2 weeks worth of content, look back, what did well, what didn't do well, what didn't do well, stop doing. Don't waste your time. I did months and months of posting content every single week that just wasn't doing well. And I just still kept posting it. So I used to do these like quotes, for instance, and they never got particularly many views. But for some reason, I'd spend an hour producing them all and planning them all into like a planning tool to submit. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, this is actually not helping anyone. And I think if I'd done that quicker, I think I would have got to this stage quicker. Yeah. Like, review your content. If it doesn't do well, stop doing it. But the flip side is also true. If it does well, do more of it because that's what people want. So for me, you know, I joked on this morning, which thankfully went down all right, but I was embarrassed when I said it. And I was like tax code queen or like, because constantly talking about tax codes. And that seems to do well because people trust me to understand it. And so those videos always land really well. That's the one. I did one on payslips and that's the one that went viral and I think it's on like 1.8 million views. And yeah, on Instagram, that's like mad. Like on TikTok, obviously you can get that kind of, we used to be able to get that sudden growth, but it's proving quite tricky now.
Yeah.
But yeah, Instagram, it went mad and that's still bringing in like kind of ticking over some people that are finding us for the first time. So I do more payslip stuff. Like I said, I ask people what they want. Yes. So on the Finance Fridays, I'm asking them to ask me questions, but I'm also doing is listing out all of their questions and then creating content off of that. Because if they're willing to spend the time to answer that question, they are probably your audience that are going to watch your videos fully. They are. Like, they're not going to waste their time or they won't. If they're asking you a question, they trust you enough to ask you that question. So if I've got 7 questions all about like, I don't know, workplace pensions, I'm then going to like coordinate all of those and be like, right, how can I produce a video? Because then I know at least for those 5, they're going to be viewing it. So I've got at least 5 eyes and they're probably going to watch it a couple of times because they want to understand it, which is great. So produce content for your community. Don't produce content you think is going to go viral or that you think is good because it's just a waste of your time. It's a waste of their time. They're going to watch it. You know, I am not someone that does the like dance things or the like kind of trends. Yeah. Honestly, I think it's incredible. I have been involved in one of Rachel's before. They're very fun. It's just not what we were doing because obviously from the start, I always said Elent had to be really like PG. So if any of the kids in my school, whether they were 6 or 17, if they were watching that video, would I be okay with them watching it? Yeah. So I had to do that from the beginning. And often with those dance videos or the trends, there's often swear words in there, which you don't even hear because we're adults and we just don't think about it. But I was like, if a 6-year-old watched this, would I be okay? So yeah, I would say.
And are you comfortable with it on your own personal brand? Like, you know, a TikTok video dancing is not me whatsoever.
I mean, I thought you looked great in yours, but
I don't even have a TikTok account. I mean, it upsets me that as a middle-aged white male, I go onto TikTok. If I set it up, I go on, and all of a sudden I've got all these like 14-year-old girls dancing. And it's like, if I'm on a train, this does not look good. Yeah. So I don't do TikTok at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just, you've decided. I get that that's popular on TikTok.
Yeah.
But it's not a line I'm going to cross because this is the brand, both the professional, the business, and the personal that I'm trying to maintain.
Also, I think people think, because I've often had asked like, oh, are you going to do like more personal stuff? And I was like, in all honesty, Elent is my entire life. I wish I was having a more exciting life going on elsewhere that I was keeping from you, but I'm really not. Like, I show you everything that's going on. And, it's just so tricky because I think there is a space for it. And I think it's a really fun and it's an engaging way. Like if you're on TikTok doing the video, like doing the dances and you hit that virality, like you get viral and a lot of young people are watching it and learning something about finance, epic. But just specifically for me, I just had to keep it like nice and cute, nice and succinct, all about finance. And that's what people can trust with me. And also, I know we talked about HMRC before, but I talk about HMRC, obviously in my PaySit videos, I'm often referring people to go to HMRC. If I'm talking to HMRC about like an ambassador or like a collaboration with them to be like, right, look, let me help you. The same with the ICAW. And they flick onto my page and I would never do this, but I'm like twerking to a Beyonce song. It's not really the vibe they're going for. No. And also, I am just like trying to be myself and it's just not who I am. Yep. So, I would say always do what you're comfortable with. Always. Don't ever do anything because you think it's made someone else go viral. I do have a little giggle because when that video went viral, I did see other people in the space basically replicate the video. And I felt a bit sorry for them because their video didn't hit. Yeah. And they were saying the exact same content as me. I'm not mad. Like, by all means, like, take it, run with it, teach more people. Yeah. But they were almost saying it word for word. And I can imagine they were probably sat at home, like, seething because they'd only got 1,000 views. But it's because it's not what you say in one video. It's what your actual, it's who you represent. It's
brand,
what you,
it?
It's like what else you've got behind you. And for me, I don't leave it that long to check in with the community. Like I said, Finance Fridays, I have Sunday quiz. Like, every single day of the Monday to Friday, I do these things called like stars where I like talk about the news. So I don't leave it long to check in, but I also don't use it as a place to like vent my own issues or ever. You probably rarely catch me being vulnerable. I think one video, I did a story when I blew up being quite vulnerable because I was not used to I was not used to having like the DMs and the people that very happy to tell you what they think, whether it's kind or not. I wasn't used to that. And I was very, very used to, maybe 100 followers, like a month or something, or it was like it was slowly building and it was lovely. And to have that rapid growth was like, oh my God. Okay, right. I need to be able to speak to this many people. And then also your friends very helpfully will say stuff like, oh my God, you could fill out Wembley Stadium. And you're like, don't tell me that. Yeah, that doesn't make me like, that's making me feel really stressed now. So it's just about only doing what you feel comfortable with. And I think my rule shouldn't be everyone's, but my rule was that if I wouldn't be happy for like a 6-year-old that I was teaching at a school tomorrow to watch the content, probably just shouldn't be doing it because not helpful.
Like I always say to anyone that will listen, which is not many people, but like remember, if it goes on social media, it's there forever. Like I have seen employers look at someone's social media and go, I'm not offering him the job because of that. Like that behaviour on that Friday night a year ago when he was out with the lads is not in keeping with our brand. Yeah. We are not employing them. Like you don't know where that's going to follow you. I mean, look at politicians and media dragging things out of their social media past that they'd forgotten years ago. Yeah. Like, so the 6-year-old part is such a great way of measuring it. Yeah. And
it's not for everyone, like I said. It really isn't. It just, for me, it helped. Yeah. Because I was like, right, what am I willing to do? Yeah. What am I not willing to do? And I said to people, I'm not willing to talk about my personal life. And I joke, but I honestly, I do mean this truthfully. There is nothing else going on. So we all run businesses, we know.
There is no personal life.
No, there is none. Sorry that I'm not more exciting. But it's, just for me, it was just really important. And I think, there's a lot to be said that like you suit your demographic. Like who are you, what's your niche, where are you going, what are you looking to do in 5 years' time, work your way back. And for me, I've got like big aspirations to, work with Parliament, work with HMRC, work with the ICAW. And I, like you, looked at my platform and I was like, if they came to my page, would they be proud to be associated with me? Yeah. And hopefully that currently rings true. But the flip is also true. You know, when I was employing people, I look on their social media, not because I'm looking to out them. Like maybe if I saw them out 4 years ago and it was a uni shot with a uni photograph with their shot in their hand, I'm not going to not hire them, maybe possibly on that. But what was also great is if I go on their social media and they're showing me exactly what I want to see. Like, you know, if I'm hiring someone in marketing and I'm seeing like really slick marketing going on their own personal gram, that's great. And it's the same for me. Like, people come to my page and all you're going to see is personal finance. And so people go, oh, okay, I know exactly what's going on here.
Yep. And
And that makes people feel safe. And then obviously leads to the DMs. Honestly, sometimes I get pay slips in my DMs and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like getting I'm like, please delete. I'm like, please delete.
It could have been worse.
It could be, but honestly, sometimes I think as an accountant it could be much worse. I'm not sure. Like, I think it's like the worst thing you want to see. You're like, if you feel comfortable sending me that, you have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
And also, you don't know that I'm managing my account. A lot of people get really confused when I reply to them. They're like, oh, I didn't think you'd actually reply. And I was like, who do you think else? Like, what? But yeah, they'd say that. And I'm like, why were you comfortable just sending your like most personal information to a complete stranger that you also didn't think was going to reply? Like, what did you... It honestly blows my mind. But then it's that lack of education, isn't it? Because we don't teach financial education at school, which is a whole other thing. But we don't teach about pay slips at school. And so therefore people actually don't put that much weight on their pay slips. They put a lot of weight on what they get paid, but they don't put a lot of weight on their pay slips, and they forget how much personal information is on that payslip.
I think it's not helped in previous years. Obviously, GDPR thankfully has changed a lot of this. But I mean, when I first got a job, I used to work for Argos, and the payslips were all in envelopes in your pigeonhole in the staff room. I mean, anyone could have accessed them.
Yeah.
So that kind of action devalued the information within that payslip. Whereas, now we're told we've got to send it through apps and stuff. And I'm hoping that starts to put a bit more value behind the information that's on it. And you realise, okay, the fact that you have to do this probably means I shouldn't just be leaving it laying around.
Yeah, I said when I send my payslips out, that's the other thing. Obviously, about an accountant, you just forget that you have this like ability to do things that other startup founders don't necessarily have. So when I employ people, it didn't even cross my mind that like I was just going to do the payslip. So I was like, oh, I'll be fine. I can do that. And obviously when you're a founder, lots of people then outsource that and they don't really have the ownership. Whereas when I send out the payslips, whether they read them or not, I don't know. I send like lots of information like, okay, this is why this is happening. This is why this has gone up. This is why this has gone down. And I'm like, and so don't forget that this income tax and this national insurance and this pension, like I do a lot in my own house, like in the Elent world, in my own team, I'm telling them the things I tell other people because I want them to also feel like they're part of it and also understand. And, you know, I really do. I don't know if they read them. They probably don't. But, you know, I do it in my own, like I said, I do it in my own house. So I'm going to do it for everyone else as well. I think that's what's really important is like, you know, what you're portraying out there, you should also be doing at home. And by home, I mean in your business.
Yeah.
So, that is something I really, truly believe.
Love it.
One final question from me.
I got them one for you.
Yeah,
one for me. Go for it.
So you said
It's gone so fast.
It blew up on a weekend when you were at your friend's 30th.
Yeah.
And most of your friends and people there were like, what are you stressing about?
Yeah.
What are you getting hyped up about? Like, what's going, what does that mean? Does it matter? Do they get it now?
They do. Yeah. I have incredible, you really find out who your friends are during processes like that because I have some incredible cheerleaders in my life. I have so many friends that track, like my partner and my family included, that like track my followers like every day. Wow. My dad is by far my biggest cheerleader. He is a builder. And when I was in the early stages, he used to go into like Screwfix and like force all of the poor guys behind the counter to like follow me. And I'd often get these like peaks of like male followers. And I was like, what's going on? Like, and it would be my dad and he will send, I honestly feel so sorry for his inbox and his like contact list in his phone because anything I do, anything at all, everyone gets it. Like he will send that out to everyone and he'll be like, did you see that I reposted it on my Facebook? I was like, thanks, Dad, to your 100 friends. That's great. That's really helpful.
20 views.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I feel so sorry for his friends because they must just be like, oh God, like so many, like leave it alone, Steve. But yeah, like you said, they are incredibly, like, I've got some incredible friends now, and like they're very proud of what we're achieving. And you know, I'm just really glad that like it's become a thing. Like it's, you know, finance has never like been, I don't know, I don't like using the word sexy, but it's never been like the thing people talk about. Like, you know, you get tech influencers, you get like fashion, like beauty. Finance, not so much. Like we just don't clearly do it very well. But like to have this like growth, and like for my friends to be like saying funny things as well, like, oh, celebrity. And I'm like, oh yeah, just hanging out with like Rochelle Humes and Andy Peters on This Morning.
Oh, you've got time for a coffee.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think, yeah, that's like, yeah, their friendships are really important as well when you're in that like starting out, because yeah, they're the ones that keep you like a bit sane. My brother keeps me very my brother keeps me very humble. He will like to remind me when he was like, oh, your hair was a bit off in that video, or like, oh, have you thought about maybe doing this, or maybe that jacket doesn't really suit you, and I'm like, oh, charming, thanks. But I think if anyone's got to do it, I think it's him. So I am very grateful to everyone, regardless of their interactions with me, I suppose.
I love it. And my final question. So you mentioned about as a kid, you think maybe possibly being on TV was one of your, you know, goals in life and being there. If you could do expectation versus reality for us, what did you expect the whole being on This Morning's going to be to what's it like in reality?
Oh, I think I saw the entire day through like the pinkest glasses you've ever seen, because I was just so ecstatic to be there.
Yeah.
So my mum is a hairdresser, so like beauty and glamour have been like a kind of theme throughout my life, and I've watched lots of hairdressers in my family. Like my mum's always done up, like her friends were always done up. So growing up, like watching This Morning, it was a very glamorous show. You had like Holly Willoughby, and like you had like Rochelle Humes. You had characters on there that were very glam, and so I just thought, I was like, oh my God, I never thought accountant and glam could be a thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I got when we got the email from This Morning, because they actually contacted us, you know, oh my God, the screaming that went on within the team, because oh my goodness, like this was a 5-year goal. Like, how can it be happening right now? I won't lie, TV is slightly chaotic. It's not really the type A accountant vibe, because oh God, they changed the day a few times. And obviously to me, you have to be completely flexible. You just say yes. But they call me on the Monday and they're like, right, we're going to shoot on the Friday. It was chaos for me because I had a wedding on the Friday, but I was never going to turn down This Morning. So I was going to make it work. And I made it work, told the bride, told everything. And then literally the next day, they're like, oh, actually, we're going to do it Thursday. And I was like, yeah, absolutely fine. No worries. That's totally great.
Cool.
Yeah. So then moved everything. And then on the Wednesday, had like a long chat, because This Morning is versus like Sky News. Sky News is very much, they'll give you a topic, and then you just jump in and start talking. This Morning, more like prime time, it's very it is scripted. So you like pre-organize your thoughts, which actually I loved.
Yeah.
So I had that chat. And then the Thursday I got there, and it was all lovely, all very, very calm. Everything was very relaxed. Went in and got my makeup done, which was like awesome. And I was sat in the makeup chair, and all the makeup artists just asking finance questions. So it really was amazing, because it was a full distraction mode, because I was sat there like, ooh, and they're asking questions, and they're like, so I don't know what to do with my savings account. And immediately my mind just calms. It's like having a little spa for your brain.
Focus.
Yeah. And then the producer comes running in, like looking all distressed, and he was like, right, so we're either going to can this, or you're going on in 5 minutes. And I was like, those are two like very dramatic. I was like, yeah, okay.
5 minutes full, cool with me.
Yeah, and I was like, and he was like, yeah, we got to go now. And I was like, okay. Okay. And then I like ran out, and he was like, how long is it going to take you to get changed? And I was like, I bought a jumpsuit, so we're fine, because it's just like one on. And he was like, okay, like there's a weird brag, but sure. And I was like, I can be really quick. And then I honestly got undressed in front of so many people. I didn't even care. Like we were in the green room, and he was like, I can find you a room to get changed. And I was like, don't, I'm not embarrassed. Like threw it on. I was like, this is fine. Kira from my team was there, and she was like, what is going on? And I was like, I'm going now. Then we like got upstairs, and then he was like, okay, you're going to be on in like the next 5 minutes, but it might be shorter. It might be longer. It was just very erratic. And then next thing I know, we ended up going on at the exact time we were meant to go on for the exact amount of time I was meant to go on anyway. So it was just, I was not used to that kind of level of
Panic.
But yeah, it was wonderful. Like you get to like sit on the sofa and, see behind the scenes, and, they're very lovely because you're talking at them. So you forget. I did honestly forget for a second that there were screens, not for very long because you look around and there's like 20.
Yeah.
But I did forget, and they were just really lovely. And I think because this morning kind of vibe is very, very chill. Like just before me, they were playing Christmas music, and then after me, they were talking to someone about like air fryers or something. So like, it's not really the like kind of area where you're going to be scrutinized. And yeah, it was lovely. And I think I also expected possibly maybe like I worried that with like social media, you can often get like trolls. And I did go on Twitter when I left. I don't know why I did that to myself. But it was actually fine. I think the worst thing someone said was that I looked like a 80s icon because I had like a full purple jumpsuit and like big hair. And they were like, where on earth have they got this woman from? And I was like, fair question. I don't look like I should. So yeah, and it was just wonderful. I loved it. But yeah, fingers crossed for more because it was so fun. And I just think I used to think it was normal to be able to talk about finance like this. I thought everyone could. And then when we kind of blew up, I realized actually that is my special skill. I am not an all-rounder. I can do everything. I won't lie to that. But I can do that well. And so I was like, right, let's just stick with that.
And let's go with it. I love it. So they can obviously find you on
Instagram.
Well, I was about to say on This Morning. That's what I was going for.
Yeah.
But plug yourself as well. Where else can people find you? If you want any of these guys to follow you or anything else, what is it? Instagram? Go for it.
I think Instagram right now is a great place where we've got like this community vibe going on. So that's at Elent, so ELENT_finance, which I'm sure we can all do. And we're starting to do some stuff on YouTube. It's all the same handle. It's all Elent_finance, just to make things easier. But I am on pretty much every channel. But we do a lot more community stuff on Instagram. We're going to start to do more on like TikTok and YouTube, but they're going to look slightly different. So we're going to do some like YouTube long form videos with like young people asking me questions. So I actually enrolled my goddaughter, who's like 14, to come into the studio and like ask me questions that she wants to know. It was very funny. So that's going to be kind of our YouTube thing, and TikTok's going to be a bit more like day in the life. So yeah, we do a lot. And then also the trusty website. We all forget about our websites, don't we? Which is literally just elent.com. And there's always new things coming out. Like we're launching our subscriber emails, and we're launching lots of things all the time because the growth is just crazy. So yeah, always just keep an eye, and I will tell everyone. I'm not one of those people as well that's like, oh, it's coming soon, or like, oh, I've got a secret but I can't tell you. I hate that. Yeah. So I'm always, as soon as I can tell someone, you'll know about it.
I love it. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. So I think that's it. I think that is our Ask the Accountant. We have celebrity friends. Done and dusted. So as always, if you can subscribe, pass on the pod to anyone, that would be absolutely amazing. We've got some great guests coming up, and yeah, we're just absolutely ecstatic by having you on today. I think your stories have just given us a bit of a boost as well, haven't they? That whole thing, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? So
there's hope for our industry yet.
Yes, exactly right. So thank you again. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you all in the next video.